Glad you just brought that up because that's what's happening to Emmanuel Moseley on my list. I don't think the Lions are going to make the same mistake twice. So in 2022, the Lions kept 6 corners, 5 safeties. In 2023, the Lions kept 7 corners and 4 safeties. So they went up a corner and dropped a safety. And I think that speaks to kind of the plan here for, the way that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell filter out this roster. And that is that 5th safety better than my 9th defensive lineman? That is the age-old question that you have to answer every single season. But I think that's the right way to approach it. You want the best 53 football players. The last 10 players on your roster, these aren't guys that are starting typically. So they're guys that are going to come in and play special teams. And I think that's a great way to look at it. Like, man, I got to have the best players on this team that understand not only their position, but special teams. So you really have 3 different teams you're picking here. And it's like that, 5th or 6th linebacker, that, 6th or 7th corner, that, 4th or 5th safety. Those are special teamers. Those are guys that are rarely going to play unless it's, due to injury or special teams. So let's kick it off with corners. So 23, they kept 7. 22, they kept 6. I'm glad you just brought that up because that's what's happening to Emmanuel Moseley on my list. I don't think the Lions are going to make the same mistake twice. Last year, I said there was no reason Emmanuel Moseley should have been a 53-man lock. There's no reason for it. The guy was barely coming back, had a cleanup surgery less than 2 weeks, prior to the start of the preseason, I believe. And at that point, it's like, come on, you can't let someone fall off this roster in place of a guy that's injured. Now, I know they kept saying, yep, he's going to come back. He's going to be ready for week 1 and blah, 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 blah. So the 53-man cut day, they let Starling Thomas go. And he's picked up by the Cardinals. And he had a pretty decent season for a rookie. I mean, rookie corners that aren't first-round talent typically struggle. You'll have your occasional, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round guy that just happens to be a, shining star for whatever reason. Losing Starling Thomas last year was huge. I think that if we would have kept him around, we could have had maybe a little bit of a better DB room, but especially this year. I think that this year, there would have been some arguments to maybe not go out in free agency and pick up 2 guys. Maybe it would have only been 1. So for that reason, last season, the Lions kept 7. Cameron Sutton, he's gone. Jerry Jacobs, he's gone. Emmanuel Moseley, Brian Branch, Will Harris, Stephen Gilmore, Khalil Dorsey. I assume that you have Brian Branch as a safety.
Yes.
Okay. So I kind of put Brian in his own category as DB. That's kind of where I put him. So given that, as it is right there, the 7 that we kept, you already have to find 2 to take care of Cameron Sutton and Jerry Jacobs. Well, Will Harris is gone, so now you have to find 3. Well, they did that with Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, and Terrion Arnold. So there's your 3 that you have to put in right away. So then the question becomes, is it Emmanuel Moseley? Is it Stephen Gilmore? Is it Khalil Dorsey to round out a cornerback room that only has 6 on the roster? So how do you do that? How do you get there? I'll start with Kindle Vildor. Look, I don't think that he's a bad player. I just think that he was in a bad defense. Defensively, the back end of the defense was horrendous. Nobody played well. Cameron Sutton didn't play well. I mean, at times they clicked, but the majority they didn't. And I think that falls on the safeties. I mean, I think that it falls on the players that we kept. I mean, obviously injuries were a problem. The Emmanuel Moseley snafu in the beginning of the season. There was a lot that was going on there. I don't think that Cameron Sutton was brought in to be our number 1. I think that Emmanuel Moseley was brought in to be the number 1. It just didn't happen. So now you've got this whole title shift of, wow, now we got a guy, our number 1 cornerback that probably shouldn't be there. He's never really been a number 1. Taking on the talent in this league that were far above what his capabilities were on the field. So Cameron Sutton was the in my opinion, the domino that fell that affected the rest. That chain link was broke. And once it's broken, it's hard to repair. So now we have Carlton Davis stepping in, who's been taking on number 1 talent, who can lock down, quote unquote, lock down a side of the field. He can at least play at a much, higher level than what Cameron Sutton has played. He just has to stay on the field. And then you bring in a guy like Amik Robertson, who's, 4 seasons of service in the NFL, can play at a high level, has taken on all sorts of different talent in the league. It's going to be tough to keep those guys off the field. But then you bring in a guy like Terrion Arnold. I don't care that he's a rookie. He's going to make rookie mistakes. It's just how do we react to, as fans to him making a rookie mistake? One, don't criticize the guy too much. I mean, we're going to have, our talking points about him after the games, but there's going to be a time where he gets burned, where he gets completely fooled, or, maybe has a pass interference at the wrong time. As long as he doesn't continue to make that same mistake over and over and over and he learns from it, that's the only thing that I want to see out of the guy in year one, is that you don't continually make the same mistake. If he can do that, I don't think that Terrion Arnold's going to be off the field very often. So you got three guys that arguably could play the number one position, in my opinion. Like if you were stuck with Amik Robertson, and I don't mean that negatively, but let's say that the top two guys are not in, they're injured or whatever. Amik can slide in and play. He absolutely could. But I don't think that the Lions are going to make the same mistake this year. I think that Emmanuel Moseley should and will get an injured reserve designation to start the season. I forget the exact term right now, but that means that he can't play for the first 4 weeks. With this loaded of a room, there is no reason why you have to make Emmanuel Moseley a 53-man lock to start the season. Bring him back in week 4 or 5. See what these guys can do. Let him continue to get healthy. You got to remember, he went down in week 5. It takes a full year to come back from an ACL, and even after that, it takes time to adjust. I don't think that Emmanuel Moseley is going to get a ton of playing time. I think that he's going to be held in a reserve type position for this defense, and for that reason, Emmanuel Moseley is going to be on the IR, which means he's going to be able to make the team and not count as a 53-man. That opens up some positions for us to be able to keep some other players that maybe you wouldn't keep had you not the ability to put Emmanuel Moseley in that position. So I'm in agreement. Terrion Arnold makes this roster clearly. Carlton Davis, a lock. Meek, a lock. Ennis Rakestraw, a lock. You're not going to get rid of your first and second round pick in year one. If you did, there better be an extremely good reason as to why one of them doesn't make the team. And I'm talking more of Ennis Rakestraw. Like, this just doesn't happen. So you got 4 guys, and you had 7 last year. Are they going to be able to do the same? Well, Emmanuel Moseley slides to IR, so that's your 5th guy from last year, but you still only have 4 on the roster. So you've got Khalil Dorsey, Kendall Vildor, Stephen Gilmore. Morris Norris, that doesn't excite me, but I haven't seen him play yet. And who else? I don't think there's anybody else there. So Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Khalil Dorsey, Stephen Gilmore, Emmanuel Moseley, Morris Norris, Ennis Rakestraw, Amik Robertson, Kendall Vildor, and of course Brian Branch as a DB. So I'm kind of with you. I think that Khalil Dorsey should get another opportunity. I think that Kendall Vildor should get another opportunity. So that would be 6 with Emmanuel Moseley as your IR guy. But Stephen Gilmore, I have to imagine that Stephen Gilmore is going to beat out Khalil Dorsey or Kendall Vildor. I think that that's where the dogfight's going to be, is for the last spot on the roster. Now, he was kept last year. So why was he kept last year? There had to be something that the Lions seen out of this guy for him to, to be kept on the roster. But this year, you have 4 top dogs already on this roster, which means the last 3 or 4 positions, they have to be really good players. So the battle, in my opinion, is Khalil Dorsey, Kendall Vildor, and Stephen Gilmore for the last 2 spots, with Emmanuel Moseley going to some sort of an injured reserve designation to give him some more time, give the Lions a little bit more time to see these guys play, and then make an adjustment, slide somebody to the practice squad, in a midnight move, and bring Emmanuel Moseley back. And then I think you'll have your top 5, Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Emmanuel Moseley as your top 5. And then Khalil Dorsey, Kendall Vildor, or Stephen Gilmore to round out the last 2. I'm going to stick with Stephen Gilmore over Khalil Dorsey. I don't know why I'm doing this. I like Dorsey. I really do. But I think Kendall Vildor's experience is going to hold out.
Yeah, you've almost got me convinced to put Emmanuel Moseley on the PUP list to start the season and take Stephen Gilmore. So yeah, I'm
good at that.
So, yeah, I might go that direction also. Keep Gilmore over Moseley and put stash Moseley on the PUP list.
So that's my list. I know I just said a lot and probably confused everybody, but here's my list. Yep. Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Ennis Rakestraw, that's 4. Stephen Gilmore, Kendall Vildor, that's 6. Emmanuel Moseley, injury designation to start the season. That way we have our 7. And then the Lions are going to have to do something by week 5 to either bring Emmanuel Moseley up or continue to stash him on the injured reserve list. I don't know how long he can stay there. He might be able to stay there until the Lions call him up again, but he has to go right to the 53-man roster. So I think for that reason, then you're going to lose a Kendall Vildor or a Stephen Gilmore. But here's why I'm going with Vildor over Dorsey. This is a tough one, man.
Yeah, very.
So Vildor was, like I said, thrown into a situation where I feel like he didn't have a good supporting cast. I liked his ability and the way that he plays. Definitely plays extremely well in the run game, and that's why I like his ability to make this roster. The Lions only want corners that are good in the run game. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, right? Because they're supposed to defend the pass. But they're more in tune with stopping the run, so you force them to pass where you can then stop the pass. Like you make them more one-dimensional. Having guys like Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, and Terrion Arnold around Kindle Vildor is going to elevate his game. And look, Kindle's not going to have to be a starter. He's a reserve guy. Now, I'm sure we'll get a message now that, hey, don't call me a backup. But that just is what it is. You tell me who's going to beat out the top three guys. I mean, there's only three corners that are going to be on the field at one time. You know, the rest of the guys are, either safeties, unless you're in a big dime or a big nickel package. There's typically only three corners on the field at any given time. Most of the time, two. So good luck beating, Brian Branch out. So there it is. I've got 6 because Mosley's going to be stashed. And then you have the safety position. I want to keep 4 so badly. I think that the battle here is between Brandon Joseph and CJ Moore. Bringing back CJ Moore, he is a special teams ace for the Lions. Always has been. And this season, I do believe that he's going to have an opportunity to remake this roster. The Lions brought him back for a reason. Obviously, he was suspended for 1 year over the gambling situation, but CJ Moore was an absolute dog in special teams. If he can beat out Brandon Joseph, now CJ Moore has 5 years of experience in the NFL. Brandon Joseph is entering his second season, but the Lions have been really excited over Brandon Joseph. So I think that's your war is between those two guys. And again, that's that question. Is CJ Moore going to be more valuable than a 9th or a 10th or an 8th defensive lineman? Because the special teams is changing big time this year. That new kickoff rule, you're going to see an identified third team now for special teams because they have to get down in a hurry. So they have to have good speed. Where are you going to get your speed from? You're not going to get your speed from a defensive lineman. You're not going to get your speed from the linebackers. You're going to need more DBs if you want to win in the special teams game. So I think for that reason, I'm keeping 4, which is going to kill me in the defensive line room, but I'm going to keep 4. So in total, that means that I have 11 total DBs on this team. That would be Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Ennis Rakestraw, Stephen Gilmore, Kindle Vildor. That's my 6 corners. Brian Branch is my DB. That's 7. Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, Brandon Joseph, and CJ Moore. That's 11. Now, if I look back at last season's roster, let's see if that even compares. I already forget the numbers. So we had 7 corners and 4 safeties. That's 11. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm making the right choice here, but we'll see what Brad Holmes does after training camp. So you guys in agreement here? I mean, you guys, especially in the chat, you tell me, does it make more sense to keep a DB that has more speed given the new the new kickoff rules? Does it make sense that, some of these teams are looking for guys that can really play that position well to be able to help with the new kickoff rules and obviously accomplish more on the field and special teams to kind of help these teams, 1, have more opportunity, but 2, I think that you're going to have more games won based on how special teams play. We don't want to see, they're trying to give us more touchdowns via kick returns. That's what the NFL is trying to do. They're trying to make the game more exciting by doing that. And I think that's where we're going to have to be really good in not allowing it.